Hope you're doing well on this. I don't even know what day it is. Wednesday. Is it Wednesday? Yes.
It is.
I don't
It
know
is.
where the week has gone, Lee. Do
I'm
you? It's
having a week like that as well.
been a
Yeah,
crazy
it's
week, isn't it?
it certainly has crazy.
As always, pop a note in the chat to let us know where you're dialing in from today. I did see a few names I recognise. Always nice to see a few people that you recognise.
Definitely.
Moving along. We'll get started in just a minute. We'll just give you people a chance to join.
Jackie, good to have you on board. It seems like we only saw each other the other day, which we did at the IOIC conference last week. Good to see you again.
Brooklyn. I do like Brooklyn. It's one of my favourite parts of New York. Where else we got?
Oh, we're very international
Paris.
today.
Well,
This is
yeah, very
good.
international. It's so interesting the way I'm sure like there was some sort of research in here, Lee. You can see what different sorts of webinars attract an international, less international audience. So, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Cool. Well, we'll just do some sort of intro bits before we get started with the slides. So, actually, no, I'm Emma, joined by Lee. We're
I'm
founders of the
Lee.
Space. We're really looking forward to today's webinar. It feels like it's been a long time coming. We're kind of launching our white paper off the back of this. It's actually something that we started writing last year. So it's crazy that it's taken us till now to kind of get our act together and actually kind of get it out in the world. But it's a topic actually when we started writing the white paper last year, we've been kind of talking about this for a few years now, but we thought we needed to kind of really kind of lean into this and share some ideas and thoughts, which is why the white paper came around kind of like the rise of AI. This kind of I guess this kind of perfect storm of the rise of AI together with increasing kind of expectations at work and why that gives us a chance to kind of become even more human centered. A lot of debate, discussion, tension at the moment, really, with AI. I think it's really, really taken off this year. And people, I know a lot of you have been using it for a long time. I know we have. I mean, I'm nearly 3 years in with it now. But this year, I think for me, has been the year where like everybody has just kind of gone, you know what, this is a great tool. I'm using it. So I think it's really kind of really being used as a kind of a BAU tool now. And given that it can do so much of what we as experts would kind of have in our, I guess, our kind of expert kit bag previously. The question is, well, what does that mean for us as practitioners in the people space, whether we're working in HR and L&D and internal comms? What's that mean? So that's really kind of where the white paper came from. We wanted to kind of just share our thoughts on that, not least building on some work we did a couple of years ago now, which we called the EX archetypes, which is really kind of what are the skills of the future. And I think, researching around what skills are going to be critical in the future. We don't want to give away everything that's kind of upcoming, but I think it's good news for us because I think the whole kind of area of human-centered practice, people-first approach really is about the kind of it really leans into the skills that we're going to need in the future. So I think it's a great opportunity for us. But let's see what you think as well. Lee, do you want to add anything to that, just in terms of a bit
I'm
of a
just, I'm
brief?
nodding in agreement. I think it feels like a moment, doesn't it? I think we've been sort of skirting around things for maybe 5 years. Sort of COVID presented a kind of pivot point, but it never really took off. But it feels like now with AI really beginning to be embedded into workflows, that
Mm,
is the turning point, and it's an opportunity, a once in a lifetime opportunity, really to reconnect with people and put human beings at the center of work again. And it's super exciting. We can be scared and run for the hills, or we can embrace this and everything it means, which we'll talk about. I'm looking forward to it.
yeah, and I think I've just noticed a few people coming in that into the room that I know we've talked about this previously. I've noticed Nicole's here. Hi, Nicole. Sorry you can't say hi back. We have to lock everything down. 'Cause had a few as we say in the UK, Rummans during webinars previously who abused our generous open nature. But like Nicole, someone that I came across 5 6 years ago when Belinda and I were writing EX by Design, and I know Nicole's really passionate about design thinking, a human-centered approach as we are as well. And for me, a lot of us have been talking about this for a long time, right? And I genuinely believe that what AI has given us is that burning platform that actually so many of us practitioners, like I see quite a few on the call who I know have been in this space for a long time, kind of feels like it's been not speaking into the void, that's not fair, but it feels like it's been a real slow burn. We know for those of us that are in this space, for those of us that use various, people first human centered practices, whether it's design thinking, service design, agile, positive psychology, we're so passionate about this and we know it works and we know it absolutely moves the dial on helping our people to have a great experience at work. But it's felt like we've been working with some kind of, a sort of outlier group of pioneers, which is fine, but it's frustrating because we know this stuff works, right? So for Lee and I think our kind of light bulb moment was maybe, I don't know when it was, 18 months, 2 years ago, when we realized that AI has given us that burning platform. It's given us that kind of that 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 reason to sort of say, if you don't adapt, if you don't, you know, take this opportunity to lean into the kind of more human side of practice, then you're going to be redundant pretty quickly. So I think it's give us the burning platform, which is what the kind of white paper is all about. So without further ado, let me get started. I feel like I'm waffling now. So I'm going to share some slides. As always, they'll be available afterwards. We'll share them with you afterwards. And as ever on these calls, please feel free to pop your question in the chat. Like I say, unfortunately, we're not able to invite you to speak these days because we had a few people abuse the tech. I won't go into that. It's a story from the other day. It's quite a hilarious story. Story from the other day. But we are looking into alternative options because we do miss the kind of irony. We're talking about, human-centered approach and people-first approach. We can't actually speak to anybody apart from the presenters. So we're looking into alternatives, and hopefully we'll have a solution fairly soon in terms of being able to invite you into the conversation. But use the chat, give us your comments as we're talking, tell us what you think. It's a very emotive topic, this, and I think it's one where the collective wisdom, that collective sense making is really where we need to go with this. No one of us is going to have the answers on this. So I'm really interested in your thoughts, your ideas, your opinions, and of course, ask us any questions. And we certainly are just finding our way as well with this because we're all new to this, right? So in terms of the what AI is bringing to the party. So we would love to hear what you think. So I'm going to share my slides. Just coming up now. So the revolution is here, we believe. We're going to be talking AI, human-centered design, the future of work. And I think this is my optimism bias here. I think this could be a really exciting time for anybody in the people side of work. And I know I'm not naive enough to think that there won't be those organizations that see this as a way to reduce headcount and to automate. But I think the organizations that will win are the ones that see the opportunity to do things in a different way. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So starting off with a provocative quote here, there's so much out there at the moment. So many commentators are talking about what does this mean for, well, lots of industries. Obviously, we're very specifically interested in the kind of the people side of the businesses, but lots of commentators out there talking about what this looks like, and lots of stats out there. I've just picked one here. 80% of your job can be done by AI tomorrow. Would you still have a role? That's quite scary, right? And it's not meant to scare you because I think, you'll probably guess now my optimism bias. The answer is yes, we absolutely still will have a role. But I think it's quite scary. We're seeing now, whatever side of the people profession you're in, AI can do so much of a lot of what we used to do. Lee and I were at a conference last week talking specifically to internal comms audience, and we've got a new book coming out at the end of this year called People First Internal Comms. And internal comms is one of those areas where, if internal comms does not adapt, then absolutely AI will do their job. So AI can now write amazing content. It can write a comms plan in seconds. It can come up with an amazing campaign. Very soon, podcasts, for example, you can record a webinar and an AI can translate that into a really brilliant sort of 15-minute podcast at a click of a button. If you're in L&D, a lot of what we used to do in terms of designing, facilitator guides or putting together whether it's presentations, whatever it might be, translations, can do all of that. Policy writing. I mean, AI can write a much better policy than most of us can, and write it from from a very different perspective. So there's a lot of what we used to do in our world, answer queries, questions, business partnering. with agent AI coming in, you can see a time when, we'll have agent HR AI doing a lot of the business partnering, answering those queries. Probably, we don't have to be experts on all of this now. We're moving from an expert led to what we call a people first approach. So that expertise we used to hold on to, like I'm the expert in, for example, employment law, right? I can now do that, right? So what's this mean for us? A couple of kind of pieces of or reports out there that are well worth digging into, and we can share these with you. So the World Economic Forum job report is really worth a look if you haven't looked at it already. And like I said, I actually think that when you look into this, it's not as bleak as it looks, right? So um, the WF say that the most in demand skills are shifting from technical knowledge, i.e., I'm the expert on employment law, to human centered capabilities. So I know, Nicole, that'll be music to your ears because I know you're a huge passionate advocate for all things kind of design thinking and human centered. So what we're seeing is that sorts of skills that we are reading about that will be more in demand in the future are the sorts of skills that those of us that have been involved with this work for a long time, empathy, curiosity, creativity, the human side, they're going to be more in demand, which I think is brilliant news for us. So great. So we get to do more of the work that actually we want and need to do. Microsoft's Work Trend Index is well worth a look as well. And they talk a lot about these human agent hybrid teams. So getting AI to do the more operational technical stuff frees us up to do the real work of the people side of the business, which is the people side, right? So being empathic, being curious, really getting to know our people at a much deeper level. So we've talked a long time about, our colleagues in customer experience. They have to know customers inside out. They can't just rely on a once a year kind of survey or the odd pulse check or maybe a few focus groups because they wouldn't have a business, right? They have to absolutely know customers inside out. And we've always kind of pushed back internally. I'd love to know our employees inside out, but I just don't have the time because I'm busy doing all this technical stuff. Well, for us, the future, or from now really, AI frees us up to do more of that human side of the side of the job that always mattered more, but we just haven't had the bandwidth to do previously. So that's where we think this is going. So again, if you've read any good reports or any good stats that you want to share, please pop them in the chat because this is all about kind of, so dipping into that collective kind of wisdom here. So the robots are coming. Actually, that's not even true. They're not coming. They're here, right? Absolutely here. So we think that the big shift for us is moving to become experienced designers who have a people first or human centered approach at the heart of that. So thinking about the emotions, the experience our people have will become absolutely paramount in this new world. And that's music to our ears, right? So this is a place where we want to get to. Um, Now, it goes without saying that employee expectations have been shifting for a long time. I think about when I first started in my first job back in the 90s, the kind of general vibe was, you should be lucky to have a job, Emma, and the fact that we pay you. And the idea of even being satisfied at work was like, wasn't there. And it was quite normal to be shouted at by a boss or, you know, to be, there were some practices around that just wouldn't be around today, which is a good thing, right? So employee expectations have shifted big time. They've been shifting for a long time, right? We've always known this. And we're at this crossroads right now. So for us, the expectations have been shifting for a long time. But like I said, I think that AI has finally given us that burning platform to really um, meet those expectations and think about how do we create a genuinely consumer grade experience. Sorry, quick stat there from Gallup, a consumer grade experience for our people. Don't they deserve that? I think they do. I'm sure all of us on this call think they do. For a long time, they've kind of been second class citizens to customers. It's been like, customer first, then think about the people. We know that's the wrong way around. If you look at any kind of any studies out there, show you get it right with your people, you unlock performance. But for a long time, we just haven't had the bandwidth to really do the kind of job that our colleagues in customer experience, in marketing, in product do with customers. We just haven't had the bandwidth or really the imagination for, not you on this call, I know you have, but the imagination to do a lot of this. So we're really excited about this brave new world where we can finally think about people as consumers. We can give them an amazing experience at work. We can with AI taking a lot of the kind of, removing a lot of that technical side of the job that weighs us down, we create the bandwidth to do this really well and properly. And also, I think it enables us as well to work with other areas of the business a lot more effectively. So we're moving away from this siloed mentality where we sit in our little world of L&D or HR or internal comms, so we can genuinely collaborate and we can bring in all these different kind of thought types of thinking. And it's interesting as well, research shows that when disciplines start to kind of bring in other areas like we're seeing in this world. So I talked already about bringing in the best of service design, the best of product design, the best of human-centered design, positive psychology, agile systems thinking. That kind of really is one of the kind of I guess kind of criteria is the right word, I don't know, but something that really kind of personifies a paradigm shift. So I think we're genuinely in about to have a paradigm shift in the world of people. So I think that the old days of HR are no more. We're moving into this new world, and we say, bring it on, don't we, Lee? So I'm going to hand over to Lee now to carry on the charge here.
Thank you, Emma. So yeah, a paradigm shift is a really great phrase for this. I was listening to one of the presidents of the HR software company Workday recently, who described this as a huge tectonic shift, and that's the sort of magnitude of change that we're talking about here. And it's as Emma said, it's already happening. This isn't incremental. This is an absolutely seismic shift. We live in a VUCA world: volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, and complexity and chaos are really the norms now. COVID, for me at least, seems like a distant memory now, but it's its impact has been lasting. Something shifted at that point in the relationship between employers and employees. And since then, what have we had? We've had supply chain issues, inflation, cost of living, extreme weather events. We've had Trump, we've had war, we've had mental health crises, we've had the loneliness epidemic, eroding trust, gig economy, and so much more. It's relentless, isn't it? And then we add AI into the mix. And the truth is, AI is already reshaping roles, and it's changing the way we operate, the work that we do at pace. In the last couple of weeks, there's been some data come out on, first of all, the entry level roles within the tech space, which are down over 70% in 12 months. So it's beginning, this is what the people are theorizing, that AI is beginning to eat those entry level roles as it does more of that initial sort of admin and more junior level work. And also in the professional services space, a number of the big four accountancy firms have announced that their graduate intake is way down this year as they begin to rely on AI more and more. So it's already changing the game and beginning to impact roles. And these two pieces on screen are really key. The consumer grade experience is a big part of this. Employees now expect, this is the expectations rising, the same level of personalization, of responsiveness, the same design quality within the workspace as they get from their favorite brands. So you think about how you interact with Netflix or Apple or BBC. They know your preferences, your likes, your dislikes, and they deliver content that's right for that. And we need to stop thinking about employees as kind of passive recipients of HR to being active participants in the workplace much more than they have been in the past. Employees now want personalization, they want choice, they want control. So pivot point, the chink in the road, if you like, the turning point that we're at now. This is really our blockbuster moment, and we genuinely believe this is a kind of extinction level event for us as people practitioners. And if we don't evolve, we'll risk becoming obsolete. Blockbuster, interestingly, didn't disappear overnight. It took a number of years. The business was well aware of the changes going on. They sat down at the board level and talked about the rise of streaming and what it meant for them, but they didn't recognize the magnitude of that change. And they didn't also acknowledge what business they were in. They kind of thought they were in retail when they're actually in the delivery of film business. As a result, they bit the dust. And it's a similar thing here. We're seeing all this change go on around us. If we don't change our source of value, we risk irrelevance in the same way. Next slide, please, Em. So the future really belongs uh, to us, those of us that can practice human-centered design and genuinely put people first. We're calling it people first. It's really a mindset that prioritizes empathy, trust, human connection over efficiency and control. And it's a recognition that right now there's a choice, and a lot of the investment in AI is about driving efficiencies. But we need to balance that, and we're the sort of champions for not efficiency, but empathy. How do we balance empathy and efficiency in the workplace moving forward? So we're seeing this as a huge, exciting opportunity for us to reshape our profession, really a once in a generation opportunity to transform work and to take the lead here. So AI versus humans, this is about recognizing what AI can and can't do. AI is already incredibly capable. It can write best practice policies, it can analyze sentiment. It can automate workflows. It can do all these at incredible speed and incredible detail and very, very efficiently. Yes, there's the case right now to say, it needs that human touch to push it in the right direction, to prompt it, to filter, to sense check what it comes back with. But it is learning at an incredible pace. And over the next few years, we're going to see that change, and it will take up more and more of this sort of, as Emma said, the expert based technical elements of our role more and more. So what do we do? Rather than sort of quivering and fearing for our roles, what we need to do is shift our center of value, our point of value, to what AI can't do, which is the human-centered stuff. It can't. It's emotional intelligence, it's ethical judgment, it's creativity, it's empathy, it's creating belonging, it's building trust. These are the things that AI can't replicate, may never be able to replicate in the same way that we can do. So we need to grab hold of those and begin to shift, as it says here, from process driven to experience driven EX. AI can automate, but only human centered design will create the experience that really genuinely engages and inspires people. Thanks, Sam. So yeah, just to sum up, AI can optimize processes. It can't build connection. Rather than competing with AI, which is a kind of mindset that seems to be dominant at the moment, what we need to do is look for skills that complement and enhance it. Don't think of AI as a competitor. Think of AI as a partner, as a sidekick, I love the name Copilot. Microsoft did incredibly well with that one, but as a co-pilot sitting next to you, supporting you and enabling you to do the human-centered part, the important part really of our roles. So we believe the people first future really is the future for HR, for people, for internal comms, for OD, for change management, and so on. So we recognize it's a really important point that expertise has become commoditized. You can now feed in any question and AI knows the answer. It knows the most up-to-date source. Yeah, there's a little bit of hallucination still, but actually it's pretty good and pretty on the ball. And as I said, that is just getting better and better. So we can't compete in expertise, but what we can compete in is how we bring ourselves into our roles, what we do, how we operate, not the sort of wisdom we dispense, but how we operate and how we engage with people. And that's through tools like design thinking, service design, human-centered problem solving. So these really are the skills of the future, which is music to our ears. That's what we're all about at the EX Space. Next slide, Em. Okay, so Emma mentioned earlier the World Economic Forum research, which is, if you haven't read it, is a really powerful read. Definitely should be on your read list. That was published this year, and they reckon that 50% of employees will need reskilling by the end of this year. They also reckon that a large chunk, I think upwards of 30% of the skills that got all of us where we are today, the skills that we've built our careers around, will be redundant within 2 or 3 years. This is the pace of change. It's utterly incredible. So again, the expert, the technical skills that we've built our careers on are not what's important anymore. They reckon that the most on in-demand skills moving forward are deeply human skills, their creativity, their problem solving, their emotional intelligence, their things like resilience, their curiosity, their deep human strengths rather than kind of technical capabilities. They're what we always called soft skills, but now they're harder and sharper and more important than ever before. And these are what will make us indispensable in the AI era. Next slide, please, Em. So yeah, I touched on these, creativity and innovation, getting people in a room, engaging people around a problem, and eliciting feedback, getting people to listen, bringing people along on that journey, complex problem solving, emotional intelligence, reading the room, understanding the mood, the sentiment, the vibe in an organization, interpreting the data that AI churns out, resilience, flexibility, curiosity, and learning. We've talked about being learning organizations for a couple of decades now. This really is the moment when that really comes into its own. KM, next slide.
And just to add to that, Lee, I think this isn't kind of Emma and Lee's list, right? This is taken from the research that we've done from reports such as the WF report, the Microsoft report. We were kind of talking about these skills through the work. I mean, Belinda and I talked about some of these when we wrote Employee Experience by Design, like, well, 6 years ago we wrote that book. Now it came out 5 years ago, the first edition. But so we kind of could probably had a pretty good stab at this list, but we've taken this from the research out there, and it's kind of it's always great when you see the work that you're doing aligns with some of the big thinkers in the industry. I think great, we're on the right sort of page here. So I think it's not sort of a little list that we've come up with. It's kind of what's out there already, as well as what we think to be true as well. So
Absolutely. Thanks, Sam. Over to you.
yeah, so I mean, it's all very big and conceptual at the moment. So I just want to give a couple of really practical examples. And some of you might have, I mean, some of you on the call have probably heard me talk about this many times before. And this is one of the kind of key tools that we use in the experience design work that we do. It's called best experience. And this goes back to that kind of that curiosity, that empathy, the skills we're talking about. And where this came from really was many, many years ago when I was in-house and I was looking after the engagement survey. And I came from a background in research psychology. And I thought initially it was the best job in the world to go in and do the survey. And I loved it. It's like the late 90s, early 2000s. And I designed the survey and we did it and it was all great. And very quickly, it went from being sort of a force for good to really a kind of really bureaucratic kind of technical horrible, frustrating job that I lost the love for very quickly. And I spent more time locked in a room arguing reporting hierarchies to make sure the right person got the right report than we did with the results. And we kind of lost the way with it. And while when I was in-house, I kind of went back to my roots, which was psychology, and used a model called appreciative inquiry, which some of you may have come across, which is a strength-based approach. The idea behind it is there is just as much to learn from what works as what doesn't work. So let's appreciate what's worked and where we want to get to and figure out what that tells us. I thought, great, we could use that for engagement because we did this survey and we always kind of look at what's not working. We take the bottom three things, we try and fix them. What about if we started exploring what a great experience it looks like for people? So this is where this kind of came from. And it's probably the single most useful tool that I have in my toolkit. And I used it in-house for many years and I used it with People Lab for many years and we use it on EX Space. And it's just really simple, right? It's about sitting down with people and saying, tell me about a time when you were at your best at work, or you were having a great experience at work, or however you want to phrase it. Tell me a story about that. What was going on for you? What did it look like? What did it feel like? What was happening? Okay. And that is a great example of really leaning into our human-centered side, right? Now, AI can't do that for us. It can help with this, right? But to have that kind of that experience of really hearing those stories firsthand. You said to AI, design me a brilliant kind of engagement survey, Tell me what I need to do to create a great experience, engage my people. It would probably come up with a load of stuff, but it wouldn't ever really know what it means for your people, right? Now, what it can do is it can definitely help you to analyze the responses you get. But hearing that firsthand and connecting with people firsthand to hear their stories. And when we do this, people feel really, they feel really seen and they feel really impressed that someone's actually bothered to ask them in a personal way. It's not a survey, it's not a fill out form. It's a either in a group setting or a one-to-one setting. It might be online, but it's people talking to people, and they feel really seen and really heard. So that's an example of where we think we still have a massive role to play. And it's the single most useful tool that I have, because what it gives you is it gives you everything you need to understand what good looks like for your people, and then you can work back from there, right? There's a lot more to it than that, but that's just one example. So this is a good example of a tool that we've used many times over the past, and you can access this from the X space if you're not already a member. Now, when Lee mentioned before lockdown, when lockdown came along, got a little bit of spare time, like many of us had. Most of my projects kind of stopped overnight. And I've never really looked at all of the thousands actually of stories. And I'm gutted that AI wasn't around at the time actually, because we would have really helped with this, but it wasn't around at the time. This is kind of like 5, 6 years ago. It would have been 5 years ago, yeah, 5.5 years ago. And I decided to kind of go back and look at all of the different stories we collected from all the different clients we worked with over probably 14, 15 years and analyze them as a whole data set. We've never done that before. Always analyze them for the individual companies, but not as a whole. And what we found was that there are some universal themes that tend to show up in most people's best experience stories. And actually, when you look at those themes that are around that kind of camera lens, so that the trust, the growth, the meaning, etc., kind of makes sense when you dig into psychology, because a lot of this stems from kind of things like evolutionary psychology would tell us that when we belong, we're more likely to survive. So belonging is really important to us in any setting, work setting, a personal setting, connection for the same reason, etc. We need autonomy. Otherwise, we get bored. When we're bored, we're not great. So these kind of are the universal themes that tend to come out across most people's best experience stories. But the reason that we kind of went for the camera image on this was because in the middle of that lens, right, is the individual. And the idea is that we focus in on the individual. We say we've probably got a lot of what we think might come up, the growth, the meaning, the impact, etc. But there'll always be individual differences, team differences, company differences. We cannot make assumptions about what they are. AI cannot make assumptions about what they are. So I always give the example of running this activity for the British Council, who, as you know, kind of tend to teach English abroad and are cultural ambassadors for the UK. And when we did this activity with them, a lot of what they talked about was the social side of the job. It was work hard, play hard, and it was a bit risky. I didn't know where I was going to be posted next. It was exciting. It was, who knew what was going to happen, and the bonds they created. That was a really big part of their best experience. When we did the same activity for Rolls-Royce, that sort of stuff didn't show up at all. It was much more around, there was a really clear brief. I knew what was expected of me and I knew what I needed to do. So those ideas of impact were far more important. So the idea is that we can probably get halfway there, but that human side of actually having those conversations with people is what you need to really shine a light on what matters for your people. So just one example of how we bring this to life, really. So just kind of building on some of the tools. So this is our EX ecosystem. And this is kind of using the work again that just beginning at Belinda, the work Belinda and I did for EX by Design. We kind of took the work of the British Design Council, the kind of the double diamond model. We kind of built on that and used 3 diamonds, which I know a lot of people do. We weren't the first to do that, but we built the 3 diamond model around scoping, opportunity, and solution. And we've kind of, again, through work we've done with people on the X space, through People Lab and our thinking, we've kind of now got this sort of 5-step kind of ecosystem here of the different sort of frameworks and tools that you need to really take this human-centered, people-first approach. So step one and step five are probably a little bit more familiar. So step one is like who we're working with and why, how to set foundations. So steps two, three, and four, where we really dig into that kind of human-centered approach. So we've got tools in there like things like empathy maps and personas and journey maps. We've got tools that we borrow from all sorts of different disciplines. You know, a service design blueprint, for example, we might use that in step two or step three. We might ideate and prototype and test. You know, very, very few people teams, very few HR teams I've worked with and internal comms teams who ever think about the idea of prototype and testing the work they do. A lot of it's just like, okay, we know what the solution is, let's just roll it out wholesale. You know, prototype and testing can save you a lot of time and energy and effort. So we've got this whole kind of ecosystem, this framework that kind of holds your hand through doing this. It kind of takes the complexity out of this. So, you know, at a kind of conceptual level, being people first, it's like, yeah, we can all nod, but how do we actually do that? What this does, it kind of breaks it down into some really simple steps. And although it might look like it's a very simple kind of linear approach here, it's not. You know, we can jump in and out to suit ourselves. And we always say, as much as necessary, as little as possible. It is the kind of the key theme that we kind of say here, the key principle here. You don't need to do everything. Just use it in a way that works for you. But what it will do is it will hold your hand and get you thinking people first, get you thinking human centered, get you thinking about how to do this. And the great thing is now we've got a lovely kind of layer across all of this where we go, how can we use AI to help us with this? So let's take an example. I mean, you know, let's imagine we're mapping a journey. So let's imagine we're redesigning an onboarding experience, which is one that often comes up. So we'd want to go and spend time with people that have been through onboarding recently. We want to hear about their lived experience. We don't want to make assumptions about what good looks like. We need to go away and talk to those people. So you might get them in a room, you might map a journey with them. We might map a future journey with them. So we might map a journey about what's it like today for you? What are the moments that matter? What could it be like in the future? What would an ideal onboarding journey look like? That's one example of a tool that we have there. Now, previous years we'd gone away and someone, maybe you or some of your team, would have had to have made sense of that, typed it up, would have taken a few days. Now we can feed all this into AI and it can turn it around in a matter of minutes. Now we need to kind of work with AI on this because it misses things, it doesn't get it 100% right, but it just takes away some of that legwork. We can work with AI to say, what's it telling us? We can, you know, really kind of interrogate the data. We can, you know, use it as a kind of as Lisa, the co-pilot, to kind of look at what the clues, hunches, and themes are for the activity we've done. It's just one example of how we can use AI across these different steps. So we can really, it really kind of gives us again that greater bandwidth to do this at a greater level and greater depth, which I think is really exciting. So some of the tools, just as an example here, things like empathy maps. We've got an example of a kind of a journey map there. Yeah, it's a journey map for I think it's not actually, that's a journey map for a real life example of bringing people back to the office, which is something that a lot of people are talking about at the moment. So how do we map that journey? So an example there. There's a 6-step ideation approach down there that B and I developed for the book. Different experience levels. There's lots of tools that sit in there. But the beauty is, as I said, these tools all sit underneath these steps. As much as necessary, as little as possible, it is the kind of the key design principle. You don't need to do everything. You might be able to jump straight to step 4, for example, but the idea is they're all in there. And we could use AI now to really elevate what we're doing, to help us out, to bounce ideas off, to do some of the kind of the work that used to take us ages, like typing up notes. I mean, thank God we don't have to do that anymore. I mean, I've actually fed like Miro boards into AI, and it's been able to. I've even fed my own terrible handwritten notes, and it's pretty good at kind of, you know, getting 80% of the way there these days. So there was a time when I'd have had to have spent days doing that. So we have the tools that sit underneath, and AI can help us with a lot of this as well now. So we have no excuse not to really grab this opportunity and lean into these skills that we need for the future. So these skills of empathy, of curiosity, of creativity, of being more emotionally intelligent. And, you know, it's just a few examples of, like, you know, there's a bit of debate around, you know, I've seen some recent studies that say actually people have got quite high levels of trust in AI. And, you know, there's lots of studies around things like, you know, the healthcare sector, you know, GP practice, etc., where people are liking the interactions with AI more than the interactions with a GP, for example. But for me, I think we bring so much value in understanding the nuances of the workplace. So, for example, one of the examples I've given recently, and this is a real life example, you know, only we as humans can understand that although that's what the kind of the structural hierarchy looks like, only we can understand that person that's maybe not that high on the hierarchy is incredibly powerful. They're a real influencer. And we need to know if we want to kind of make change happen, we need to get them on side. We'll have that kind of insight that AI would not have, for example. Just one example. So there's lots of other examples. Love to know what examples you have, but we genuinely feel that working in partnership with AI is where we'll really get to kind of move the dial on this. So back to you, Lee, to finish off, and then hopefully we've got some good questions coming through.
Thanks. So yeah, I guess the key point here, a lot of this isn't new. Design thinking has been around since the 60s. We've been talking about engagement for decades, experience for a long time. What is different is AI and that burning platform, and that's the big game changer here. And so, this isn't a trend. This is much more than a trend. This is a real shift. The ground is shifting beneath us. This is time for a movement, and that's what we're looking to sort of push and make happen here. And there's a choice here, as I said at the start. There's a choice between efficiency and empathy, and everyone on this call and those of us in the people space within organizations can really be the champions for this, for a human-centered world of work moving forward and using these tools. So be the architect, grab this opportunity, become the change maker in your organizations, is the kind of call to action here. Are we ready to lead this shift, or are we just going to sit and watch our roles slowly get eaten up and made obsolete by AI? The choice is pretty clear. Thanks, Sam.
So if you're not already, get curious, try the tools, experiments. Think about what AI can't do, where you really add the value. Don't wait till it's too late. Start showing that value now, right? Start showing that the bits that AI can't do. Demonstrate that, evidence it, and get designing. Map and improve journeys, for example. And I think, as Lee said, we're really excited about this because a lot of us have been talking about this way of working for so long, but AI has given us the burning platform. It is that kind of, evolve or die moment. And there's also a real opportunity here as well. I'm going to put up the EX space. If you're not part of the EX space, please join. We've put some stuff in the white paper around, for example, the skills of the future. Well, I think what's really interesting about this is that that there aren't any real experts, right? We're all learning together and we're figuring this out together. I think that's really exciting. There's a great opportunity here to really collaborate in a way we haven't before, really co-create. And the skills part is one example of where we really want to kind of, work with some of you or many of you to really co-design what we think skills the future look like, or skills not even the future for now look like for people in the people profession. Where's this going? Let's own that. Let's talk about that. Let's move it forward. And I think there's a really amazing opportunity here, once in a generation opportunity to really, I guess, start to realize the kind of workplaces that we've all wanted to create for a long time, but not really had the bandwidth or the buy-in or the remit or the permission to do that. And I know many of you are already there, and we work with some amazing pioneers who really get this stuff. And what's really interesting is that a lot of the people that we work with, not all of them, but come from lots of interesting backgrounds. So I'm thinking about one of our clients, Giles. I don't know if Giles on the call, not going to call Giles out from Cambridge University Hospitals. He's from kind of a design background. Another client of ours, Helen, is from Cambridge University Press. There's a lot of Cambridge going on. Came from a kind of a project management background. Alison, another client of ours, came from a corporate comms background. So I think this is really exciting because everybody's bringing a slightly different sort of look and feel and stance and lens and perspective to this, and it kind of gets rid of a little bit of the kind of I guess the sort of defensiveness about your expertise in your ivory tower. There aren't any ivory towers in this new world. We've all got to work together and learn from each other, which I think is incredibly exciting. So if you haven't joined already, please join, and would love to take some questions from you and get some comments. So love to hear what you think. And the white paper will be on its way as well. So tell us what you think.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Emma. Thank you, Lee. There are some thoughts rather than comments, or a few kind of questions coming in. So I'll go through those. But great time to just remind everybody, if you have any questions or you just want to share some reflections, please do use the chat now to do so, and we can share those. So first one here is a question from Alexis. Creativity and emotional intelligence come up a lot as future ready skills, especially internal comms. What are some concrete ways that you've seen teams actually build or measure them in practice?
In terms of building them, I think this is where the kind of design thinking approach really helps, right? Because I think most people, I don't know, I'm generalizing here, but I don't think of myself as being particularly creative, because I think of being creative as being able to draw, which is really wrong, which is not that at all. And creativity is a muscle that can be developed and built on. So the ideation tools, and again, I mean, look on the EX space, got loads of stuff, but just have a quick, look at ChatGPT. Ideation tools are a way of getting even the most, even a team that say we can't be creative, really creative, right? So it isn't about, being a great designer or as in kind of like artistic design. It's about really opening up your mind to thinking differently. So the ideation tools are brilliant, and they really hold your hand through building that creative muscle. And I've worked with, I'm going to stereotype here, but I've worked with lots of teams who, when we start doing this sort of work with them, they kind of, they don't want to do it, and they're like, oh, they want to write a bulleted list. And I've even done a bit of an A/B test before now, where I've got one team to sort of come up with some ideas or be creative writing using words, and another team to use kind of more creative tools and ideas and techniques. And the difference is mind-blowing. So I think definitely look at the ideation tools. There's so many out there, and they really do work as well. In terms of measuring it, I think for me, again, there are ways you can measure creativity. But I think it's really about, novel solutions to problems. So different ways of looking at problems, different ways of coming up with a solution to a problem, not doing what you've always done before. It's not about a really fancy, good-looking kind of PowerPoint deck, or really, fancy, talking about comms here, like a really fancy kind of infographic or a really fancy event. It's about, is this a new and different way to solve this problem? And does it unlock that as a solution going to work? So those would be my kind of top tips, I guess. Lee, what about you?
Yeah, I think, from an internal comms perspective, and Alexis, you're going to love the book that's coming out in December, People First Internal Comms. I think, within internal comms, I used to run a creative-led communication agency for many, many years. It's all been about creative. And when I say creative, I mean, big campaigns, slogans, clever creative treatments, pretty pictures, graphics. This is the stuff of internal communication, or has been for many, many years. And I think, again, the turning point is here. We're shifting from messaging to moments, from campaigns to journeys. There's a really fundamental shift in how we need to go about internal comms moving forward. So it's not creativity for the sake of it. And I think, to Emma's point, it's the way that we interact and bring people along on the journey. It's how we ideate, how we experiment, how we prototype. That's where the creativity of the future happens. And, ultimately, is that creativity in service of human connections, or is it just pretty pictures and fancy slogans? So I think there's something really key here, and very, very pivotal. And the other bit, EQ, emotions, that's at the heart of this. That's again, from an internal comms perspective, we've always been about heads more than we have about hearts. We've always been about the rational side, the information, the messages, and control. And again, this is a fundamental shift here away from that, towards emotion, towards freedom, towards implicating people, not treating people as a passive audience, as passive recipients of communication, but as active participants in the process of communication. So again, hope that helps, Alexis. Some really quite a groundbreaking turn here, a real pivot point for our profession, I think.
Excellent. Thank you both. Yeah. And just kind of building a little bit on what you were saying, Em, around trying out some of the different tools that are available on the EX space. I think one thing which kind of builds on your point about sometimes people kind of come into these activities and think, oh, I'm not sure about this or a bit nervous about it. I think one thing that really does unlock creativity and builds it is stepping outside of your comfort zone. So when you've got activities like those that, like you say, hold your hand through it and actually take you through it, so you're not having to kind of come up with a blank sheet of paper in terms of how you go about these things, that in itself can unlock different parts of your brain. I mean, you've got the neuroscience behind this. It does unlock different parts of your brain when you're trying to do things a slightly different way to what you're used to, particularly around creativity. So yeah, definitely check out those tools.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And we have to force ourselves to think differently because our brains will try to take the path of least resistance and do the easy thing. So
Yeah.
if we kind of intentionally do something different, it will kind of force us to be creative. So that's why we use these tools. So yeah, there is a load of neuroscience behind it. I think we haven't got time to delve into it today. Another call, maybe.
100%, definitely. And then we've just got some reflections here from David as well. So thank you, David, for taking time to put these in here as well. So first of all, there's an opportunity really there to design experiences where humans and tech both show up powerfully in the roles that they're best at.
100%. Just to leap in there, absolutely 100% agree. Great observation, David. And that's where the consumer grade experience really comes in, because what AI does is power that part of the experience. It enables us to personalize, to through partnering with AI, we can deliver what people need, and it frees us up. It turbocharges what we can do in the human space. So absolutely, this is a partnership with tech, not competing with tech.
Yeah, definitely. And then David also says that for me, the challenge will be to ask my team, what are we still doing today that was built for a pre-AI era? What needs to be reimagined entirely? The people first future won't just be more efficient, it will be more felt. And I think
Mhm.
that's where our focus needs to be. There's a clear call to experiment. We don't need all the answers, but we do need to start trying things differently.
Hoorah. Absolutely. Totally nodding in agreement. Well said, David. Totally agree with that.
Fabulous. Any other thoughts or questions or reflections from anybody? Do pop them in the chat now.
I mean, I think that, this community is wonderful. I suspect we're probably preaching to the converted, which way you start, right? We start with the converted, we start with us early adopters. For me, the mountain to climb is to go out and to spread the word. I feel like I'm kind of getting all evangelical now. Spread the word, convert people, get them thinking differently. And we know from the work that we do that even something as simple as like using creative tools. Sometimes we go, oh, I'm not sure it'll go down very well here. Like trust the process, trust the process. And even people we work with for years, like, oh, I'm not sure. It's like trust the process. It works and it does. So I guess my ask is for all of you to go out and start to talk to people about this and start to spread the word and spread the language and use the tools and just to that whole kind of like viral change piece, just to go out and just start to make this happen in your organizations and just talk to other people about this and talk about it on LinkedIn and just spread the word.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And actually, that's something that I'm finding really exciting with the work that we do, is we're starting to see through the sister business, People Lab, which is consultancy business, we're starting to see more people collaborating across different business areas. Whereas before we'd be brought in for projects with an internal comms team or with a team that sort of specialise employee engagement or experience or HR. Whereas now we're seeing much more sort of people from each of those areas coming together in one program, and that for me is one of the most exciting things about this change altogether, really.
Yeah.
I was just going to add, the other element really just to underline is that there is an urgency to this. This is a window of opportunity. We can, if we sit back, I don't know whether you've seen, there's a great piece of work called AI 2027. If you Google it and you fancy being scared out of your wits, have a look at it. It's by a group of researchers, really credible folk who have created some scenarios about the future of AI. I'll give you a clue. One of them is annihilation, but that's the depressing part. The other opportunity actually is to say, look, if we get a grip of this and quickly, we can shape this into a force for good. So I think, just to underline that, there's a moment of a phenomenal opportunity here. There's a window of opportunity that won't last forever. So we need to act with intent and urgency. And there will never be a better chance, a better moment to kind of press, to hit reset, to recalibrate, reimagine, reinvent what we do as practitioners. That moment is now. So I'm sounding really evangelical as well now, I am. So yeah, let's rise.
Do it. Let's do it with all of you. So yeah, if you can help, I ask of you is help spread the word, talk to people about this, share stuff, share the webinar recording, whatever it might be. Talk about what you're doing. We'd love to hear about what you're doing. How are you using these tools? How are you getting your heads around this? How are you using AI? What are you seeing in your organizations? We need to kind of really talk to each other and figure out what's going on. And I think that's where that's where we'll really kind of make some sense of this. So let us know what you're up to, because we're always up for hearing what's happening with you. So but I think if you haven't got any more questions, then we can just kind of we can finish up, right? So anything else we need to say before we finish up, Katie Lee?
No, I just to add on the point you just made there, about talking to each other. If you are a member of the EX space, then please do share and continue the conversation on the community thread as well. We always love to see discussions happening within the community. So if you're not a member, please join. It's completely free to join as an Essentials member. You don't have to put in card details or anything. It could not be easier, and you can continue that conversation with like-minded people, like all of you great people on the call today. So yeah.
And I was just going to add the white paper. You'll get a link to the white paper after this call. It's a phenomenal read. It really is. It brings together all of these threads. It's almost like a manifesto for the sort of messy human future of work. So please read it. Let us have your reflections. Share the link. Get the word out there. Evangelize. All that good stuff. But yeah, it's been great. Thank you for joining us today. Massively appreciated. And I hope you found it useful.
Thanks
Thanks
everyone.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.